So welcome everybody to our All About Alopecia video series, and in this video we're going to be talking or reflecting on the last 15 years of Alopecia UK. As I'm sure you all know by now, it's our 15th birthday this year, which is a really big deal for us and a huge achievement, and we thought it would be a really nice opportunity to go right back to the beginning and reflect on the last 15 years really, and how the charity has got to where it is today. So we've got a few guests here with us today, and we've got Vicky. If Vicky wants to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Vicky. I got alopecia in 2003 and kind of searched high and low for help and information. And having failed to find very much, I set up the website and then the charity Alopecia UK.
So Vicky is our founder, the founder of Alopecia UK. And we also have Jackie. Does Jackie want to introduce herself?
Hi everybody, I'm Jackie Tomlinson, and I have had alopecia from 2004. I've been a volunteer and also a previous trustee for the charity. I think I got actively involved in the charity, I think we found from a newsletter back in 2009, but I was aware of its existence back in 2004 when I was searching the internet. So thank you, Vicky.
We also have Simon. Simon, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Simon Ray. I'm current Chair of Trustees for Alopecia UK. I don't have alopecia, my wife does, and she got it in 2012. And I first found Alopecia UK through the website that was set up, and by going along to the Alton Towers event and volunteering from there.
And so finally, to introduce myself, so I'm Jen Chambers. I'm currently the Charity Development Manager for Alopecia UK. I've had alopecia since 1995, so I'm going to act as though I'm some wise old alopecia out. So I kind of have as well the benefit of being able to know what it was all like for the 10 years before Alopecia UK started. And so for me, Alopecia UK was a brilliant thing to be put in place. So, and I came across Alopecia UK probably in the early stages, really around 2005. It was when I was at university and I was wanting to research a lot of things around alopecia, and so finding Alopecia UK was brilliant for me and everything that I was doing. So, and yes, has led us to now. But I think really we should start and go way back to the very beginning. So Vicky, what prompted you to start Alopecia UK, really?
Really, it was kind of my inability to find a lot of information. I think, as awful and as old as I sound, the internet, didn't have an awful lot of resources. And then, searching high and low for anything to do with alopecia, a lot of the information I got was from American sites. And I really struggled to find much in the UK. The website I did find was at Hairline International, but the only thing that they offered was a kind of send off, and they'll send you some information in the post. And what I really wanted was be able to kind of find a website really for people with alopecia in the UK. And through having not been able to do that, I kind of, I spoke to my family and we all kind of got together and we said, well, why don't we do this? Why don't we set up, a website for people in the UK who've got alopecia?
And I think it is really important to kind of, it's easy for us to forget in the sort of the day and age that we're in now, and everything that is accessible through the internet. I remember actually searching alopecia probably in about 2002, 2003 for a college project, and I think I've got the print offs now. There wasn't a lot on there at all. Like the website was, and the internet was very different thing back then, and everything was still very much developing, wasn't it? And so I think there definitely was that need, and everything's grown again, which I'm sure we'll get to in this conversation, but there definitely was that need there for information, basically. But so it was very much in the early days then. It was a family affair, wasn't it? A lot of the family were involved in the charity. So who was involved and what did they all do?
I mean, my sister and her then partner, now husband, kind of did most of the website stuff. So he did the kind of putting together of the website, hosting, things like that, all the kind of technical stuff. My sister and I wrote most of the content, kind of cobbling together stuff, having it checked by professionals. My dad did the finance stuff, and my mum kind of did things like the telephone and sending information out and things like that. So yeah, it was very much a family affair.
And
So where did you get the information from that you were
we kind of cobbled it together. Some of the information did come from online, some of it came from books. You know, some of the professionals we approached, they had information, things like treatments, people like Dr. Fenton, you know, he had a lot of that information, but it wasn't publicised anywhere, you know, why would it be? So yeah, we could kind of get that information from him.
And I think, Vicky, quite early on, you were in touch with the British Association of Dermatologists, and I think your mum used to do a lot of those meetings in the early days.
Yes, she did.
Where most of the, you know, the initial kind of input and support came from.
Yes, yeah.
So it all kind of, and then I think there was, you set off with the website, but then it kind of then naturally started to grow. Kind of, what happened after the website?
The website kind of started, and then we got, you know, more and more contact from people saying that actually they'd like to meet other people with alopecia, or they'd like this, or they'd like that. And we suddenly realised that actually, you know, the website was great, people were finding it really useful, but it needed to be a bit more than that. So we started things like support groups. Initially, I ran the London support group and kind of met up with a group of people in London or kind of the surrounding areas. And then we had the discussion forum as part of the website, and people there were wanting to kind of meet up. And then we were getting more and more people who actually wanted to give us money. You know, this is a great resource, we'd really like to donate to you. And we said, well, we can't just take money, you know, what bank account is it going to go into? How are we going to record this? You know, here's my personal bank details, you know, it just wasn't viable. So kind of within the year, we said, well, look, we need to do something. If people want to give us money and we need funding, you know, website hosting and things isn't free of charge. I think we need to start looking at becoming a charity. So that was kind of where the website developed. So we kind of set out to do all the paperwork to register ourselves as a charity.
Yeah, so I think for me, it's a very needs-led thing, isn't it? And kind of listening to what people needed and wanted, and the growth of that to the forum. And I remember the forum. So for me, I'm going into my wise old alopecia owl role. You know, for that first 10 years, I did have the contact with the organisation Hairline International, like you mentioned before, and we got this stuff posted out. I think my mum wrote a letter, and like that shows how yeah, it was, not emails. But yeah, and so for me, that first 10 years, not really meeting other people. I think I met one girl eventually, and yeah, that was it. But I maybe saw the occasional thing in the newspaper. So when I came across the forum, and it was just full of all these people, and everyone was talking about alopecia and talking about things that I'd like felt for maybe 10 years and not spoken to anybody out. And I was just like, whoa, this is like amazing. And I remember then also going to the support groups, like, and it was a lot of people kind of going, do you want to meet for coffee? Does it? And I think I traveled all over kind of. I went to Wales, I went to Preston, I went to Leeds, I was in Liverpool at the time. And so it just really was kind of this like thriving sort of this brilliant thing that everyone was just coming together and finding each other. Like, I think, you know, you couldn't find before then, you couldn't really find other people with alopecia easily, could you really?
Is that not the first thing when you come across alopecia? Is all you're desperate to do is find somebody who's gone through it and explain it to you, and meet somebody who's been in that same position? That's a key part of what we do, or what you created, Vicky, and what people are always constantly looking for.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, and I think there's a kind of, you want to normalise it a bit more. Am I the only one that's got this? Because you look around and you don't see other people without hair. And so I think, yes, you get this, and you turn to, you want to turn to other people that have been in the same situation as you, that can help you. They might have a bit more information. I think that's why the internet now is so great, because actually it's really easy now to find a lot of information that 15 years ago just wasn't available.
Absolutely, and I remember that discussion forum from the early days, and it just opened up so many other doors, and you would be able to see people posting, and if they'd tagged roughly where they lived, you could then identify and start up conversations. And I've met some amazing people through that, that initial discussion forum, and then we went on to form a little kind of local support group with a few other volunteers as well at that time, and that's where you then, when you start participating in a group, you start to see and identify the needs that the charity has now grown into. So from very humble beginnings, it really has made a major impact into the charity. So yeah, great. Well done, Vicky, for finding it.
how many groups did it grow into, Vicky?
Yeah.
Sorry?
How many groups did it grow into? Was that quite a quick process in terms of the growing
I
out?
think a lot of people were meeting up, but not necessarily telling us, if that makes sense. People would arrange to meet with kind of one or two others. But the support groups just kind of naturally formed, I think. Some people, I think we did struggle a bit with finding leaders for support group. Even though people wanted to meet up, they didn't necessarily want to be the ones to have to find somewhere to go and to be there every single time. But certainly it was a natural progression with 2 or 3 up to kind of 5, 6. And it started obviously because I'm in London. We started off with a London support group meeting, but it grew, fairly quickly. I think people, really were keen to meet other people with alopecia.
But I remember, there was some times when I remember once when we met in Preston, and it was just somebody saying, shall we meet in Preston? And it wasn't necessarily a group, but there was 10, 15 of us went and met in a pub and just chatted, and then that was it. It wasn't a regular thing, but it was just kind of shall we? So I think there was a lot of that went on. But the forum though just provided that central point, that people could have those conversations and find each other, and once a few got together, others, and that has grown now, where we are kind of able to get volunteers that do the support groups, and they've got some more structure around them and things like that, and support in place to. But we can get on to all.
Exactly. So it was very much self proliferate. It really kind of did expand on it, because I think when the charity started having more support groups, there was then a need to support the support groups, and that was my things. I wanted to desperately try and support the support groups, because we all have alopecia as well, and we have to deal with the disease day in, day out. And then when you're supporting others, we done a couple of, we got another charity involved, didn't we? And kind of like to help the support group leads, give them tools and skills to kind of be able to handle that group chat and the emotions that hair loss can bring. So yeah.
So Jackie, then, so you've spoken there about you finding the forum, and then you sort of set up a group. So tell us about how you first came into contact with Alopecia UK and your journey to getting involved. And
so I stumbled across in 2004 when I was first dealing with my own hair loss, and found the discussion forum. And I think that was very alien back then. I certainly hadn't come across it. And I'd grown up with computers and technology, but this was kind of revolutionary in some respects. And this was I came across this, and I had an office. I used to work for a publishing company, So we would have our little iMac computers, which were the cube ones, you know, the cute ones with the colours.
Oh, yeah.
The other side would be the typewriter, and we would still be using the typewriter to type out addresses. So I mean, I mean, just like don't comprehend that nowadays. So I think I kind of, you know, would participate a little bit in the discussion forums, and from meeting other individuals in that discussion forums, I was a very keen runner back then, and I was training for the London Marathon. And there was another chap who lived quite local to me, and he was also training for the marathon as well. And I think he had the charity placement actually. We got together and we decided that we wanted to raise some funds for the charity. And so I contacted the charity to see if they had any kind of like, you know, flyers or a banner stand, because we were going to set up a little stand in the local super shopping centre. Contacted Ruth, and we met, you know, quite, you know, kind of like meet me under the arches at this particular train station. The charity only had one banner stand and they couldn't afford the postage to post it to me, so we kind of met in London, and I met Ruth, and we stopped and had a coffee, and by the end of that conversation she practically said, well, you know, the charity is all run by family members, and we're looking for new people to come on board and help us. Do you want to? And I went, okay.
Basically put you on the spot.
Well done, Vicky.
I went back home, had a chat with my now husband, and he said, well, you know, now's your chance to do something, you know. So I got more involved with the charity in terms of helping Ruth with the administrational side of things. And that was back in 2009, and at that same time I decided to come out of publishing and retrain my career into nursing. So I was just starting my nursing degree, so I was all very much interested in research as well, and so I had access to databases where I could do searches, and I was finding loads of things about hair loss and the research that was being done, but nothing really, you know, that you know, I think the charity, that's we were associated with the British Association of Dermatologists, and that was it. And of course dermatology is a massive speciality, and kind of hair disorders just take up a small portion of it. So there's lots of funding and research for lots of things, and I got interested in that, and then I was supporting the website, you know, the administration side of things. What else was I doing, Vicky? I can't quite remember now. It seems such a long time ago. And then gradually, you know, was invited to, you know, apply to become a trustee. And then there were a couple of other new trustees that came on board as well. And gradually we kind of grew the central core team of the charity. Because it was all voluntary led, and that's a big risk when you're just completely voluntary led. You know, that you need security in there if a trustee. And I think there was a time, wasn't there, where there was only 4 trustees, and we had to have 4 of the governing document. So we just felt that was too risky, you know, because if somebody was to step down or become ill and not be able to, or whatever life throws at you, that we needed that extra security. So I think we beefed up our trustee team and our volunteer team, which then enabled other things to happen. And we could see there was, you know, I think there was so from the discussion forum, you're able to pick out themes of what people are thinking and feeling. And so I could see research was one of them, that people were like, there's no research. And there was a particular, I think, rant on the discussion forum that Lyme disease got all the research money, and you know, if Lyme disease can get research money, then why can't hair loss? So there was, you know, so the discussion forum was very useful in that respect, in identifying, you know, what we could do. So I think the highlight for my time with Alopecia UK is, you know, trotting off to the European Hair Research Society, you know, and just not knowing who I would meet there, which was a bit scary at first. And I do remember locking myself in the toilet, hyperventilating, going, what the heck am I doing here? And then I got a little tap on the shoulder. I turned around and it was Professor Andrew Messenger, who I had met from the British Association of Dermatologists, and then Dr. Paul Farrant was there. I think Dr. Fenton made a flying visit in as well. And they were ecstatic that a charity member had come along to their meeting, and they looked after me so well. And you're so nervous as well, because, you know, you have the disease and you don't want to come across as a stalker. But, you know, you want answers as well, you know, and that then opened the door to so much more, you know, in terms of, we got some funding from, we was invited to come and give a presentation and be a presence at the World Congress for Hair Research, because the next time it was being staged in Edinburgh. I can't remember when that was, Jen. Was that
Edinburgh was 2013, yeah.
I'm terrible at dates. And that was amazing. And we got some money for that, which we safeguarded for research. And then it just kind of started to grow and grow. And we realised, you know, we're now, the charity was now kind of on the radar of researchers and clinicians and consultants. And they're wanting something from us as well, and we needed to grow, you know, but we were still very voluntary led, so we were still at that kind of, you know, we like to say we were at the cliff edge, weren't we, and we either leap across or we tumble down, and we had to take that leap of faith, and then Jen and Amy came along, and the rest is magic.
So I think really so when you got involved with the charity then, Jackie, I think you got involved in all of almost the infrastructure, the admin stuff, and you know, you were doing the newsletter, which back then was posting out, and as the charity was growing, I seem to remember, you know, it's all right when it's maybe 100 letters, but when it starts to grow beyond that, that's quite a lot of like sitting in your evening stuffing letters, and I know that you did a lot of that type of thing. So
that was revolutionary.
So what was?
MailChimp came along.
Yeah.
And that was
MailChimp. So you know, so I know you got involved in a lot of that. So not only was there that side of things and helping with kind of the everyday things that are developed to be jobs that needed doing in the charity, but I think it's also fair to say that you were kind of probably the person that got involved in the charity that started to all the seeds for the research stuff and for that to start to develop. And what's quite nice, I think, about Alopecia UK is that you nailed it with the aims, Vicky, to start with, because support, awareness, research, I really think you do need all three aims, because everyone with alopecia, they want all of it. You know, I want to be supported, I want people to know what I've got, and I want to know that there's research happening. And they all complement each other as well. So I think you know that, but I think that the research one started to grow probably as Jackie got involved. Is that right?
Mm.
Yeah. And then we kind of, so Jackie 2009, and then you kind of got involved, and then you sort of then have brought us up to kind of me then getting involved, which was sort of the back end of 2011. Which for me, I always remember, because I actually came down in 2007 and met with all of the Alopecia UK team. So as I said earlier, I was doing my psychology degree at the time, and I was doing a dissertation on alopecia and identity, and I wanted to interview people. So I'd got in touch with the charity and said, can I interview people and get involved? And I remember going down in 2007, and it was you know, I stayed at Vicky's mum and dad's house with some of the other volunteers, and Nigel Hunt, the guy who'd done a lot of psychology studies around that time as well, which was perfect for me because I meant I had actual studies to quote in my own work, and yeah, I just remember like it was quite a buzz in the room, and you know, it was quite exciting because this charity that was getting going and growing. But then I think what happened then, like I came then in 2011, and I think this is kind of a key point in the charity to probably address, is you touched on it before, Jackie, where you said about, you know, volunteers. And so the charity up until that point, it was all completely volunteer run. And I remember coming at the back end of 2011, and I thought, oh, there's a little bit of you can sense that there's a bit of fatigue there almost. And I always remember a really important quote, something that's always stuck with me. It's actually a previous week's supplier of mine. I'm chatting to him, and he said, Jen, he said, a voluntary organisation will only last as long as the enthusiasm of the volunteer. And I just thought, it just stuck with me and always has. And I remember coming along 2011 and just noticing, and then for 2012 I kind of wasn't quite sure what I was supposed to do or where I was to fit. And then yeah, I think there was an email that got sent in 2012, and I think there was just this, it was a period of time, wasn't it, Vicky, where I think everything was changing. Like your family, like that was such a long time to have done something voluntary. You know, it's getting 2000, you know, 5-6 years, and a lot changed in that time, didn't it, with your family and what was going on in everybody's lives?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, you know, I think we'd all started the charity with loads of enthusiasm, but I think we were getting to a point, and, you know, my sister and Paul got married, and they had Josh, and then, you know, me and my husband had Oscar, and we got married, and, you know, things were changing, and we were all losing almost the time as well as the inclination to want to carry on. You know, we had other things, we were all working full-time jobs as well as now having children, and it just started to get harder and harder to fit in the time to do everything. And we had kind of this, you know, this lump of money in the bank, and it was a great amount, but it was just, we didn't know what to do with it. You know, we were like, well, do we put it towards this? Do we put it towards that? If we fund a member of staff, it's going to be enough for 1 year maybe, but then what do we do? And I think we didn't know, and we were kind of running out of steam as to what to do next. You know, I think we'd exhausted all our family and friends and donations there, and, you know, I think we'd kind of got to a point where we were like, actually, we need new input. We need somebody else to come on board and to lead this charity forward.
Which much
what I could see, because you know, there was fatigue, and Vicky's exactly right. We all have full-time jobs, we all have, you know, personal life, other relationships to maintain, and I was getting tired because the more work you do, the more work it generates. And, you know, most of my annual leave was attending conferences to raise awareness. And I think my poor husband, for several years, we only had like 1 week together out of, you know, a year, because the rest of my time I would be, selling the wares of the charity, so to speak. So yeah, we were at that kind of point, and I just felt, you know, Jen came along, and I could see, you know, fresh blood almost, and fresh ideas and new ways of thinking. I just thought, we just can't let, you know, all of the Bowditch's hard work, all of my hard work, all of the other volunteers' hard work, and the other trustees and people that have been, you know, that have helped the charity along the way as well, you know, just kind of fizzle away. So I particularly wanted to see salaried members of staff, you know, and for me that was my kind of like parting gift, so to speak, to kind of get the charity to that point, and then I would feel happy to let, you know, new other people come along and take it to the next level.
I think so. I think at the point of me getting involved, like, we were still a little way off at that point as well. Because for me, like a key moment for me that I'll always remember. I think we had a meeting coming up for September, like 2012, maybe ish time, and it was a meeting that Jackie couldn't make. So you'd sent an email with like feedback on different things, but it was also, I think it was a time when there was fatigue, and then there was probably a little bit of frustration. You were still kind of quite fresh from kind of being quite energized from going to like these World Hair Congress meetings and stuff like that. And I think I always remember a line that it was kind of like, you know, we need to, what's the charity doing? We either need to, I can't remember the exact words, but it was either stop or dissolve or develop, basically. And I just remember my whole kind of being going, oh my God, that's totally the wrong way. We can't not have the charity. And I think that a lot of that comes from, I knew what it was like in that 10 years before Alopecia UK, and that to me. And I remember when I was doing my dissertation, interviewing a lady, and she was telling me she'd had alopecia for 40 years. And what she was telling me from 40 years ago, and I was like, well, that's exactly what it's like now. And I was thinking, why isn't everything changing? And we need to be, and so for me, we need to progress forward. And I think, again, Wise Old Owl, I think a thing that I can see is Hairline International. I remember when I was at uni, I spoke to Elizabeth Steele, who was the founder of that organisation, and I always remember speaking to her, and she said that she was finishing the organisation, and I just remember being really shocked, and she just kind of said, I've given it 25 years, I think that's it. And I remember being really, really shocked and thinking, like, you just always assume that something like that will just carry on and somebody else will do it, but unless something develops in a way that gets other people involved and other people do get involved and take it forward, then yeah, it won't. And so I think that a really important stage for Alopecia UK was that transitional period. Vicky and your sister and mum and dad, everyone was kind of ready to go and do other things with their life, but it's kind of like, well, who's going to come in? And at that point in time, I was probably still quite fresh from, I'd done all my studies and I had done a lot of work on alopecia, and I kind of felt like it was a bit of a waste if I didn't use it. I also had worked in a couple of charities and stuff like that, so it's almost like life was sort of moulding me to this point. And then I think, so I remember, the volunteer bit, I was still working, and I remember getting in, I'd have my tea and I'd sit down at 7 and I'd be there till midnight. And then you'd use your weekends, and eventually I was like, we can't keep working in this way. Like, the charity had to push forward, didn't it? To be able to just, but yeah, and I think I managed to persuade everyone to just take a leap of faith, and then I could make it a job and I could do it full time, and and I think that's what we did, didn't we, Jackie? So I think you kind of
yeah. So of course, I mean, and that's part of the kind of the learning. It was okay, now we employ someone, we're no longer, we have to develop to support that employee. We're now becoming an employer. So, and all the kind of the legislation and the endless risk assessments and the staff handbook and all that kind of thing. So, it really, and like, if anyone's out there listening to this, it's like starting your own business essentially, so I had a certain level of skill. I could get it to a certain point, but then it needed somebody else to come in and take it to that, to that next level, as to where, where I could take the charity. And that's when kind of Simon came in, or started grooming Simon. We probably didn't realise.
I'm not sure how much grooming there was. We had one meeting and I was chair. I think the phrase that comes to my mind is "on the shoulders of giants," and it's building on the work of those before me. And I think the thread for me all the way through all of this has been Jen and Amy, and the drive and the experience and the knowledge and the passion they brought to everything as we go through. And I've kind of tried to see this as more of a stewardship type role. And I think you're right, Jackie. It's that starting a business side of things, which is kind of my experience, and taking the charity through its sort of it's been through its childhood, it's been through its teenage years, and we were sort of migrating hopefully into adulthood, which one of my good memories was sitting down in a trustee meeting and saying, I think we should have a head office. And Amy turning to me said, well, I hear Shipley's good. And I looked at her and said, yeah, so I think that's a great idea. And the colour draining from her face. But that's for me is putting the charity on a really solid footing. And, a lot of the hard work that's gone into that by primarily Jen and Amy is paid off, because we've gone into this COVID situation and we've gone into it in quite a strong financial position, and we've had a structure that we can rely upon and keep going. So that's the plan for the future, to keep it going. But fundamentally it's like a business, and we want to make it a viable business to keep going and continue. And Jen hit the nail on the head there. The thing that we have as part of the trustee meetings now is revisiting those 3 key aims, and that's just drives us all the time. You know, research, support, and awareness are just a thread that goes through everything that we do.
And they all complement each other as well. You know, you need to do the awareness to kind of get the name out there, to find people who you then support. A lot of the people who we do support, then, you know, you build up people's confidence and self-esteem, that then they feel able to publicly say they've got alopecia, and a lot of them then go on to fundraise, which the more funds that come in, you can then put that into research and stuff, and it all kind of links in together really quite nicely.
That's my favourite memories, actually, is the meeting that we had a weekend away around at Jen's place in Liverpool when she was living there, and kind of set up some of the aims and objectives for the charity, or focus the aims and the objectives. They were already there, but we just kind of focused them so that we could, you know, have a framework on that. And that was just one of the best weekends, you know, ever. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I seem to remember it was coming up with kind of our mission statement and just rewording the 3 aims, and I think, yeah, it was almost a bit kind of the strategy sort of refocusing, which needs to be done and we're currently going through that now, which Simon's probably we're doing it again. And yeah, you've got to always kind of check in, make sure that we're on point with what everybody is wanting, and then kind of go, right, this is the direction that we're heading in, and then we can develop our work streams around that, and just always trying to keep it on point really. But Simon, I think it's interesting. So when you got involved, what was your impression of the charity at the point at which you kind of got involved?
Well, it's quite interesting. When we found the website, we looked through the website, it all looks very professional. It's a national charity. It's, you know, it's really quite big. And then you go along to Alton Towers, which was a fantastic event. It was well organised. There was lots of people there. And then, you know, I don't know if I emailed you, Jen, or called you and said, look, like to help. Can I do anything? She grilled me on the phone quite a long time, which you'd all expect. And then when you start to look under the surface, you realise actually this whole thing is being held up by just a few dedicated volunteers, making the whole thing look much, much bigger than it is. And, you know, whilst we've made significant strides in terms of size and what we're doing, and obviously we have a lot more employees now, you know, it's still, for a charity, a national charity, it's still relatively small. So I think I was surprised at how small it was underneath, and how potentially vulnerable it was to some of the risks that we talked about earlier. And so one of the things that I was quite keen was that we put in place lots of structures around boring things like, you know, finance and treasury and accounting and all those kind of things, so that we know that we have something that's stable that we can build upon for the future. And it seems to me the more that we help people, the more it generates revenue, the more it widens our community. And from a revenue perspective, the reality is we're not going to get huge amounts of revenue from anyone other than people who are affected directly by alopecia. So the more of those individuals we can find, the better, and the larger the community we can be, and the more we can help and support. So for me, it was small, but you could see the potential and the dedication. So, and I was just willing to support and help everyone on that process.
I think as well, kind of, you know, I think a lot of what you've done as well, Simon, in your role is, you know, thinking back to when we started, we had this different email system. You could only have like a month's worth of emails, and
yes,
you know, they wouldn't store them and things. And so we had that, and then Hotmail and all of this. And I think you got a lot of, you're very tech and into all your gadget systems. So you know, we got, and I think, you know, we're all working on personal laptops, and I think mine like broke, and it was kind of that kind of, you need the tools to be able to do the job. And I think But I think there'd always been that sense, hadn't there, Vicky, of like, oh, we don't want to, you can't use things on some of that, so it's got to be on. But actually, you need to be able to have a laptop to work. If we a lot of what we do is digital, and it needs to be, but you need to be able to connect in digitally. We need an email system, and now, like, I think all of that has progressed, and it's put us in a really good position. We are all spread across the country. We work we've almost got a virtual office now, and that's worked really well for us this year, actually, because it's meant that everyone could quite quickly. We do have the head office and 2 of them working there, but quite quickly, because of the systems we've got in place, we've just been able to, almost just carry on quite seamlessly, really, to be able to do everything that we do. So I think that's been an important thing. That, Simon, you've brought us, I think, brought us that charity that stage further with. Are you quite busy?
Well, I think it's being brave enough to spend money, and I think one of the things that I've been quite keen to do is, if you run it like a business, we need to spend money sometimes to accumulate money and to have the impact that we want to have. And frankly, a few laptops is not much in comparison to what we're achieving elsewhere. So we need to give everyone the skills and have the employees and the people within the organisation who can do the job that we want them to do and achieve the aims that we're heading for. So I think it's been fantastic, and I think all due credit needs to go to Jen and Amy in driving that through that second stage.
So this latter stage, but I mean, and I think that's what's interesting about this whole conversation is just looking at how a charity does grow and develop, and those key points of, there's a lot of charities out there that would get to that point where everyone was getting a bit fatigued and they would just stop, and that would be the end of them. And I think that would have been such a shame if that had been the case for Alopecia UK, because you don't want somebody to have to start again and put in all of that work again. So we could, because you'd done everything that you'd done, Vicky, and all your family, and Jack as well, and we've just been able to kind of just keep building on top of that and just keep it all going. And we've kind of, I think, we've, with the support groups, for example, as they've kind of grown, and sometimes it'd just be a meet up, and now we've got, a whole process that we put a volunteer through before we kind of let them become a support group volunteer, and to check that they're all right with it. We've got support in place. We've got funding for a new role, and so before COVID-19, she was able to go and visit the support groups and say that, do a bit of the charity talk and check in with how they are, support the group volunteers, with a phone call. And now the group leads get kind of an online group team meeting sort of thing, and all of these sort of things that are only just starting to go. It's taken a long time to, that whole transition phase. It took a long time, I think, to get to grips with everything that was in place. And then when we were able, it wasn't until 2014, I think, that I was able to full time go at it with the charity, and similarly then Amy not long after, and before that. So it's just been, it's been it's been an amazing journey for me and my own path with the charity, but I think it's been an amazing journey for the charity as a whole from the beginning until now. And I think, as we said before about the key thing for me was that the charity does have staff, and it does have the structures in place that, for me, it needs to be that no matter who comes and goes, the charity still stands, because it always needs to keep going and keep developing. And I don't ever want the charity to be in a vulnerable position where it's reliant on, ideally, if I ever need to leave, if somebody's just going to pick my job up and it's not going to be a big deal.
It's about ensuring that a single point of failure, really, isn't there? So, I mean, it's about ensuring that you've got processes in place to be able to kind of continue if you get poached by somebody, which I hope you never would do.
Totally. Fingers are crossed.
Yeah.
I think Simon's right to agree. I mean, this year has been exceptionally different to every other year we've ever had, but with COVID, actually, you can show, Alopecia UK is still going, we're still strong, and so many smaller charities have folded. Even large companies have folded due to COVID-19. It's a real eye-opener how many companies unfortunately haven't lasted through this period, and yet small charities like Alopecia UK, who've had a really good structure in place, have been able to survive.
Which is good, but I think it's important as well for anybody viewing. Let's not rest on our laurels. Is that the saying? You know, we're able to kind of, but we definitely do still need people to get involved and support us for going forward. So a huge amount of our money does come from people fundraising, and a lot of that is kind of, you know, it's slowed down a lot. Obviously, a lot of the fundraising events and things like that. You know, we had stuff where we booked on and we're going to do team stuff, and it's all cancelled, and so a lot of that money is not coming in now. But we hope that we have got the structure in place and all the financial structures in place that, you know, we hope that we're going to see through this. But we still need people to kind of get involved and support us to ensure the survival of this charity that I'm sure a lot of people with alopecia, it's benefited a lot of people. I know it has. I know it's reached thousands of people over the years. You know, from simply it providing a space where people come together to meet others. You know, the big thing that we do at the charity is peer support, and the reason for that is because, you know, we're only a small charity. We're a small staff team of 6. We can't support everyone individually. It's got to be, you know, we need to facilitate that everyone can support each other, because actually for a lot of people that is what everyone needs and wants. And you know, the way things have taken off and how we've progressed from the forum on the website, which as technology kind of grew, that started to get less. And, you know, then we've now got all this social media. You know, there was none of that back in my day. There was none of all of that. And now, so all of the groups are now on Facebook. The support groups are growing, and we've introduced events. So all of these different ways that people can now meet. And I'm going to have lost my thread there of where I was going.
No, I think you're right to mention, Jen. You know, one of the things that we're very cognizant of on the current trustee board is, you know, we've effectively set up a cost structure that needs to be met every single year. Now we built some reserves in there, but you know, fundamentally we're grateful to all our fundraisers, but we need regular income. So I would encourage anyone out there who's been helped by us to fill in their monthly standing order and see the money come in on a regular basis. That's now we need to build the charity.
Yeah, and get involved as well this month in you know, we're obviously this month doing the 15 for 15 campaign and trying to get as many AUK birthday champions to go and raise their £150. So that the more of us, I think a lot of people doing a little bit really comes together to make a huge difference. And I think that we've got a really good community of people that do go out there on the charity's behalf and fundraise and raise awareness and which is brilliant. And I think that, you know, there's a lot of people who sometimes see our charity and everyone's so involved, and you know, we put a research study out and the researchers will always comment like loads of people with alopecia filled it in, and which is brilliant, and that is what we need to continue to do. Everyone needs to keep that motivation and enthusiasm and support in everything, really, for it to keep going. Which I think brings us, I'm going to look on this screen over here for, I think that kind of brings us up to now, really. Which, yeah, I mean, how does everybody feel about the charity in its shape? For you, Vicky, as the founder of the charity, and 15 years later, how do you feel about the shape that it's in now?
I almost can't believe it, actually, from such a small little group of us with a little website. I look back and think about what the other website used to look like, and you know, the graphics and things were so bad. I think that was just the state of, you know, websites back then. But I can't believe it's been 15 years almost. It makes me feel very old. But it's just amazing, actually, what kind of everybody, you know, throughout the years has achieved. And I think, you know, we as people have joined, they've brought fresh ideas and fresh ways of doing things and new things. And I think it's really helped the charity as a whole. I think without everybody who's kind of been involved with Alopecia UK, we wouldn't be anywhere near where we are today. You know, I think if I was still on board with my mum and my sister, we probably still wouldn't be running. You know, and I think it's been really, really good. It's lovely to kind of look back, but it's amazing what we've achieved now. And it's a fantastic charity. I think so many people get so much from having it. It's lovely to see as well, you know, all the positive support, kind of all the comments that people make about it. And I'm not much of a Twitter person or anything, but I do follow Facebook, and you know, somebody can ask something and they get so much help and information and support from other people on the group. It's so lovely to see. Yeah.
No, it is, and it's brilliant that people can access that as well. And yeah, but no, I think it's been an amazing journey, I think, that the charity's been on, and I always would definitely sort of say that, you know, the journey that it's taken and all of the people that have been involved, like, it's just all of the different points, and there's so many more people, I think, involved in the charity than what people would probably realize. You know, like, all of now we've got like a research committee of people, we've got a board of trustees, we've got, you know, a huge team of volunteers now, and all of this has been obviously all along the way, and it's all from that beginning point of putting those structures in place, and then it's just grown and flourished outwards from that. And you know, way back in the day there was loads of people involved, and I remember some of that 2007 meeting, you know, all the moderators on the forum, and you know, there's always been a lot of people, and I think that there's that enthusiasm and passion from people with alopecia, the alopecia community, who, you know, we all want everything to be successful, don't we? Because it's making changes to benefit all of us. And so, yeah.
That is the big thing. I think the community that has been created, that is just phenomenal. And putting all of these people together and working together and friends and connections is just amazing.
And it means we can go forward, we can do more support. We've got loads of ideas of how things are going to develop in the support side of things and the awareness side of things, and research. We've just run our second round of the Research Pods grant scheme this year, and we'll be doing it for a third time next year. So all of these things we're still a small charity, but we like to think we do accomplish a good amount. So we hope that this has been insightful and given people a bit of insight in what it's taken to get the charity up to this point. And I would hope that, you know, if the need is still there for support, awareness and research for people with alopecia, that the charity will be there for another 15 as well. So
that will be an interesting call.
Sorry?
That will be an interesting call. Yes.
I wonder what we'll be doing it through. Maybe not a computer. It'll be. But yeah. So I think just in that case, we can probably. I think it just brilliant. Thank you all for coming and sharing kind of your bits of the journey with the charity, which just highlights what a journey it's been. So thank you, everybody. A big happy birthday to Alopecia UK. A huge thank you to all of you for all of your involvement in Alopecia UK, and even bigger special thank you to Vicky for actually setting it up, because imagine if you hadn't. So
if your hair hadn't fallen out, it would have been a whole different story.
It would. So the world has kind of brought it all together. So thank you, everybody, and let's hope that everyone gets involved with the 15 for 15 campaign. And we'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.